Eating is quite the intimate act, so it's the perfect thing to be exploited in the horror genre. This is done so in a bloody and darkly funny way in today's 25th pick on the countdown. This is M.L. Miller Fright's Best in Horror Countdown 2022 through 2023, counting down the best in horror within the window of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
Number 25.
Feed Me was released on October 27th, 2022, and it's streaming on Tubi from XYZ Films.
It's directed and written by Adam Leader and Richard Oakes. A while back, Kerry Russell starred in a film called Grim Love, a true story about a cannibal who meets a person who wants to be eaten online, and both make a deal to do the dirty deed. No, we aren't talking about the Armie Hammer biopic. It's the story about real-life cannibal Armin Muse, also known as the Cannibal of Rotenburg. I disliked Grim Love, despite Kerry Russell's performance, as it was a dour and humorless film that took itself way too seriously. Feed Me is inspired by the same sort of story, but takes a different route, a humorous route. After the death of his longtime depressed wife, Olivia, played by Samantha Loxley, Jed, played by Christopher Mulvin, is left despondent and directionless in life. But in attendance at Olivia's funeral is a strange man named Lionel Flack, played by hosts Neil Ward. Lionel has an offer to make Jed, acknowledging his desperation. Lionel proposes that since he inevitably wants to end his life, that he do so with a purpose, and that purpose is to supplant Lionel's desire to consume human flesh. With nothing left to live for, Jed agrees, and thus begins a very strange friendship between Jed and Lionel as Lionel devours Jed piece by piece. So yeah, this is a gory one. There's a level of grime and grue to Feed Me that few films achieve. Seriously, Lionel's hellish home looks like he's been taking a page or three out of Better Homes and Gardens' Sawyer Family Spectacular Edition, with blood and body parts decorating every wall from ceiling to floor. Lionel seems to be quite a deranged man, with a giant naked portrait of his mother in the dining room, a large collection of lamps, and, of course, his favorite goldfish as the centerpiece of the room. Whomever was the set designer of this film deserves to be on the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre for sure. But despite the heavy amount of gore, ambiance, and dour subject matter, Feed Me finds a way to be quite funny. This is mainly because of the standout performance by Neil Ward, who gives an iconic turn as Lionel Flack. Upon watching the trailers, I could have sworn Feed Me stars Jason Sudeikis. Now, it's doubtful that the star of Ted Lasso would star in a movie of this type, but there he was. Turns out Ward does a spot-on Jason Sudeikis impression all the way through Feed Me, but it's not just an impression. He does look like the comedic actor as well. But aside from being a dead ringer for Sudeikis, Ward still delivers a wonderfully nuanced performance as this cannibal that you love to hate, but you can't help but love as well. Ward brings a complexity to his performance, giving Lionel small tics that shatter his foghorn leghorn disposition at times. He has moments where you can't help but sympathize with the actor's hound dog eyes and genuine excitement for what he does. We see Lionel succeed gleefully, and for a bit, this feels like an unconventional story about friendship, and you cheer for Lionel to finally find a kinship with Jed. Of course, Lionel is bent as a dog's leg, so his happiness is sabotaged pretty quickly. But because of the likability of Lionel, it makes the deep dive into depravity watchable and enjoyable. Ward shines here in a truly iconic horror performance. Countering Lionel's over-the-top performance is Christopher Mulvin's Jed, who serves as a voice of reason through this nightmare. He's a severely depressed and suicidal voice of reason, but a voice of reason nevertheless. Mulvin carries a lot of the drama here and is able to pull off the sad sack routine and remain a character worth investment. It's almost the perfect balance, with Mulvin playing the straight man to Ward's over-the-top lunacy. Even though there is an abundance of gallows humor, this is an extremely downer of a film. No one comes out unscathed, and the themes delved into is not going to make this a feel-good film despite the humorous breaks in tension, making this oddball film unevenly paced. It doesn't serve as a detriment to the story, but don't expect conventional here. The directors and writers behind Feed Me, Adam Leader and Richard Oakes, also were responsible for the surprisingly good film Hosts, not the Zoom film from 2 years ago, but the Carpenter-esque alien invasion film released last year. These guys are showing a great range in the horror genre. Feed Me stands out as a madly unique and deliciously diabolical dish.
While it's not so much about eating, the title of the film suggests it, so I paired it with Feed Me. I told you not all of these pairings are deep. Spoonful of Sugar was released on March 2nd, 2023, and it's streaming on Shudder. It's directed by Mercedes Brice Morgan and written by Leah St. Marie. In need of a new nanny for her child Johnny, played by Danilo Cavetti, Rebecca, played by Kat Foster, interviews Millie, played by Morgan Saylor, a seemingly innocent and naive young woman who immediately seems to form a bond with Johnny. While Kat attempts to finish her next novel, her distracted husband, Jacob, played by Miko Olivier, busies himself with carpentry in the backyard. This leaves barely enough time to watch over Johnny, who suffers from various allergies and other sensitivities, which cause Johnny to have violent outbursts. Millie seems to have a soothing effect on Johnny, but Millie is not exactly what she seems. Addicted to microdoses of LSD for her own mental illness, she begins giving her doses to Johnny, which seems to have a positive effect on him, at least in Millie's opinion. But soon the bond between babysitter and child become closer, making Rebecca suspicious and somewhat jealous at how close Millie and Johnny have become. Part orphan, part Emily, part servant, Spoonful of Sugar is one twisted dose of horror. Just when you think one character is so bent it can't get any worse, another character is introduced in this dark and demented world of twisted motherhood and lurid relationships. There's not an innocent in the film, other than young Johnny, and even he has his issues. Reminiscent of films by David Lynch and stories by Clive Barker, there are no real innocent characters here, only different levels of evil and perversity in Spoonful of Sugar, where most of the wolves don sheep's clothing. While oftentimes a film like this leaves me grasping for a character to identify with, the depths with which this film plummets kept me fascinated from beginning to end. This is mainly because of some fantastic performances by pretty much the entire cast. Morgan Saylor is excellent as Millicent, a child who has gone through multiple foster homes in her life and bears deep emotional and mental scars because of it. We find that she has been the victim of abuse, mainly sexual, over and over again. She comes off as an innocent child in her initial interview at the beginning of the movie, but soon we realize how deceptive she really is. Saylor switches from caring babysitter to delusional lunatic with ease. With some well-integrated CGI, we see her world, which is plagued by hallucinations, and how unsettling it would be to live with what she sees. But she embraces all of this craziness in a way that only reveals how damaged Millie really is. It's a wonderfully flawed character, and Saylor brings it to life gracefully and dementedly. The rest of the cast is strong. Smaller parts, such as Millie's therapist, played by Keith Powell, show how Millie is affected by the men in her life and how even the simplest gesture is mistaken for something much more devious. That said, we also witness her relationship with her foster father, played by David Yao, an especially unsettling one that's going to make you wince a time or two. It's their interactions with Saylor's Millie that makes the roles so key to uncovering her character. While I was less impressed with the aloof and unsympathetic father of Johnny, Jacob, played by Miko Olivier, Kat Foster delivers a powerfully potent performance as Johnny's mom, Rebecca, who feels threatened when her son's relationship with Millie gets stronger. Rebecca has issues of her own, and they come out quite horrifically later in the film. All in all, this is a superbly acted movie full of deliciously damaged characters. There's a real bloodthirsty tone to the entirety of Spoonful of Sugar. It doesn't paint any of the relationships depicted in a positive light, and only shows how they can be manipulated into a pretzeline mess when two damaged souls get together. Millie lives her life as if she's walking through a fairy tale, and it's quite painful to see those innocent dreams shattered with reality. The relationship between Millie and Johnny plays out in a logical way, even though there are some large leaps in time throughout the film, and some of these transitions go a little fast. It all culminates in a climax that proved to be very unpredictable, and a last-minute revelation that makes everything click into place pretty well. I liked Spoonful of Sugar quite a bit. The insanity on display is extremely disturbing and sometimes hard to watch, not because of the gore, though there is some, but how raw and honestly damaged these characters really are when they let their guard down. Spoonful of Sugar is a psychologically thunderous and wonderfully unpredictable little movie. If you enjoy trips into the most bent of minds, this one's for you. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or how about you play along at home and give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown. Be sure to hit all of those pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.